Welcome back to WCTV and Plead Your Case. I'm Keegan Raabe. Today we're going to talk about men's and women's March Madness, as well as the Masters, which kick off tomorrow. So sit back, relax. It's time to plead your case. Welcome back to Plead Your Case. The Women's March Madness just wrapped up. South Carolina coming on top of Iowa. Joined by Joey Chirillo and Tyler Zeman. Tyler, we'll start with you. What in that final game kind of pushed South Carolina over Caitlin Clark and the Hawkeyes?
Well, it was a great game. The most watched March Madness championship this year between the women's and the men's. And it was highly anticipated. I mean, you have a South Carolina dynasty that has won 3 titles since 2017 under Dawn Staley, and they went undefeated this year, a perfect record to cap it all off with the ring at the end of the season. But when you look down the box score and the stats, the difference for me, the bench points, 37 from South Carolina, none from Iowa. And when you have a South Carolina bench that is as deep as they are, they played 10 different players in that game compared to only the 6 or 7 that came off the bench for Iowa. For me, that's it right there. The depth from South Carolina flipped this game on its head. It's why they came out on top.
I think it really came down to because Dawn Staley has been able to really push this team into their limits. And when they came into that last year, they had a bunch of seniors, and a bunch of those seniors were able to move on to the professional field. And they came in not having a lot of star players for South Carolina, and Dawn just was able to keep it going and was able to keep away to continue getting there, and they got there with that undefeated record, which was truly remarkable to see.
Yeah, I mean, we saw Caitlin Clark, 40-point games throughout this tournament multiple times, and she started out this game hot against South Carolina and then kind of dwindled down in the second half, third quarter, fourth quarter. What kind of led to that, Tyler? I know she takes a lot of shots, and some she probably shouldn't take, but she started not to hit them in the second half as much.
Yeah, well, she had 30 points to finish this game. If you ask me if Caitlin Clark could have done anything more for this Iowa team in this program, I would tell you no. I think she's done everything that she could have possibly achieved. You just look at the teams they went against, the star players had a supporting cast. You look at Angel Reese, she had the guards around her. You look at the South Carolina team, I mean, they are one of the best teams all around at every position when you look at prestigious programs in women's basketball right now. Caitlin Clark could have not done anything more. But the third quarter is where they kind of fell off. I mean, 1 for 9 from three-point. This Iowa team, because of Caitlin Clark, lives and dies by the three more than not. When you are shooting 11% from 3 in a third quarter out of half, it's not going to get it done. And that's part of the reason why South Carolina was able to outscore them in the quarter and eventually go on and close it, again, because of that depth. I mean, Caitlin Clark, yeah, she's incredible. She was great. But the shooting in that third quarter, I mean, it just didn't help.
Yeah, and with that shooting with Caitlin Clark, she's 100% going number 1 overall. You cannot deny that. She will be going to the Indiana Fever in just a few weeks. But I think the biggest thing to be said is that women's basketball, especially in the collegiate level and I'm sure in the professional level, has taken off. The viewership has grown. Like we said, they had the most watched over the men's team. And I think it's just a really big thanks to Caitlin Clark, and especially to those teams like South Carolina and to LSU that were able to continue making these popular games. I know that I sat down and I watched the entire Iowa LSU game that went on earlier in the semifinal round, I believe, or Elite Eight, wherever it was. Yeah, wherever it was. And it was just one of the greater games to see, and especially going in seeing South Carolina led by Coach Staley, and then you see Caitlin Clark just playing ball like anyone else. It's been exceptional.
Yeah, that kind of brings up my next point. Tyler and I talked about it earlier a little bit, and how the women's was more viewed than the men's in the finals this year. And do you think it was because the women's was on a Sunday at like 3 o'clock and the men's was on a Monday at 9:30?
It could be. I mean, I think the biggest thing to say, though, is that I don't think anyone really expected Purdue to get as far as they did, and we'll talk about that later, of course, but I don't think anyone really expected Purdue, and no one was really a fan of Purdue, and when they noticed that it was UConn-Purdue, UConn won last year, and I think everyone was just like, oh, whatever, we've been seeing Caitlin Clark a lot more, we've been seeing Dawn Staley a lot more, why not watch them? Why not? And I think maybe that Sunday time frame had something to do with it, but I think the biggest thing was just this is a more interesting game. In my eyes, I've seen more about Caitlin Clark. I've seen more about South Carolina than I have about UConn and everything about their team.
No,
so
yeah, I agree.
I've seen more about the women's sport than I have seen the men's since the round of 64.
Yeah, it's all over social media. I mean, you can't get away from Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese on social media. But do you think now that Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese are both moving on from college basketball, do you think it affects the viewership or brings it down, or does it stay kind of up top where it is now?
For me, I think it stays the same. I think you'll have that next generation of stars that headline it because, I mean, we talked about it. Yes, the timing of when these championship games went on could have definitely played into a role of why more people watched the women's than they did the men's. But for me, the NIL and the addition of it has helped the women's basketball game extremely. I mean, you cannot watch one basketball game, men's or women's, without seeing an ad for Caitlin Clark, for Angel Reese. They have built the brand, and you have to give the credit to ESPN. When they took over full-time after COVID with the bracket breakdown or the bracket announcement at the start, and then they have full coverage of it all throughout the tournament, ESPN saw something, they saw potential, and they took it over. I mean, granted, you had Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese play into the headlines, going back and forth at it. You saw the drama last year in the championship game with Angel Reese pointing to her ring finger while Caitlin Clark walks off the court towards the end of the game. And then this year, you had the rematch of it in the Elite Eight. I mean, that was a highly anticipated game and could have been a championship game, and they got it in the Elite Eight. I think ESPN saw the potential, and they grew to it. You still have women like Paige Beckers for UConn coming back. They got bounced in the Final Four. That's a team that has won so much and is one of the elite programs in college basketball. They have a star returning next year in Paige Beckers. She could easily become the next face of the sport in my eyes.
Yeah, and I think another point to that is that for South Carolina, they came into this not having any seniors on this team, and they were able to develop them very nicely. And Camila Cardoso, was the biggest one that came out of this. She, I bet, will be going top 5 within the WNBA draft. I have her here going to the Chicago Sky, as the Sky need to build up their defense a lot more. But the biggest thing is that she was, sorry to say it, she was basically a nobody last season. Nobody knew who she was.
You're not wrong.
Like, nobody knew her. And I'm sorry to say it, but that's how it was. And then you came into the season. She was playing great. She was basically the leader of the South Carolina team behind Coach Staley. And then you just see her pop off. She does great stuff.
Yeah.
And then she has earned a top 5 position within the draft. So I think that kind of player is just going to come into this, whether it's defensively, offensively. I think they're just going to come into this collegiate level at anywhere at any point in time, and it's just going to wow us all.
Yeah, you have great athletes sprinkled all over the place, and you have great coaching who can develop the talent. I mean, like you said, she came in that championship game alone, played 30 and a half minutes, had 15 total points and 17 rebounds.
Yeah.
I mean, she absolutely dominated in the center position for South Carolina.
Yeah, I completely agree.
I mean, I agree with you guys to an extent. Like, there will be those star players still in the NCAA women's basketball, but I think it's going to die down. There's no more Caitlin Clark, no more Angel Reese. Those are the two that kind of showcased women's college basketball this year. Now that they're gone, I mean, I think it falls off.
I think even if
I don't think it stays up to where it is.
If women's college basketball falls off, fine. But then the WNBA, they're getting Angel Reese. They're getting Caitlin Clark. They'll be going and playing for them. And you're going to have those rematches between Clark and Reese. People are going to tune into those no matter who you are, especially if you're going from that collegiate level to that professional level. I think the viewership will balance out at some point, and I think as we've just stepped into it, and especially with the Summer Olympics coming up, I think it's going to help this tremendously. I think viewership's going to stay.
I'll say this one last thing. I think the way ESPN has been able to bring people to the sport television-wise, but you look at the way those basketball arenas were filled during March Madness for the women's side alone. I mean, they played in smaller arenas, sure, but those places were filled, and you couldn't say that about every round in the men's March Madness tournament. You just can't. And I think the way that they've been able to bring people to the sport, I don't think people are just going to leave as easy because, Caitlin Clark's not there anymore. I mean, you have college fans are like nobody else. When you have a passion for a school, I mean, when you have a passion for a school,
State, yeah.
you follow that team through the rough and through the bad and through the good. I mean, just because Caitlin Clark's not there doesn't mean Iowa's not going to succeed next year. I mean, there's a transfer portal, there's NIL, and there's incoming freshmen. They can easily find a system that gets them back to this spot. And those Iowa fans are going to travel, they're going to support, and they're going to watch from wherever they are. And I just think that's kind of the system that women's basketball has now gotten into. You bring all these people here, they're not just going to step away easy. They're going to keep coming back. Because when you have a winning team, I mean, you look at Iowa's athletic programs alone. I mean, Caitlin Clark scored more points this year than Iowa's football team did in the 4 years she was at Iowa. I mean, Iowa football, sure,
That's
they made the
crazy.
Big Ten championship game,
That's
but
insane.
nobody really watches Iowa football. When you have an athletic program in women's basketball that's winning a championship or fighting for it in the last couple of years, people are going to stay and support that program. That's just how it is in college athletics.
Yeah.
Definitely a lot to think about, but that does it all for the women's segment. Next up, we'll have the men's March Madness segment right here on Plead Your Case.
Have you ever wondered what the life of a Yellow Jacket newspaper looks like? Why don't we show you? Straight from the printing press to our editor's desk into the newsstands, you can pick up your own copy of the Yellow Jacket newspaper in Buell Hall, the Stover Campus Center, or any of our other newsstand locations on campus. When you get your very own copy, you can read it at your own leisure anywhere around Waynesburg. You can kill time waiting for your next class to start by reading up on campus news and our op-ed pieces. You can even take your copy to the Beehive and catch up with friends as you read up on the latest regional stories. Looking for a peaceful place to read now? Head on over to the Everly Library. Sit back, relax, and catch up on the latest in Waynesburg sports. Oh, and if you didn't know, we are also digital at theyellowjacket.org.
Leaving for Kentucky. Welcome back to Plead Your Case. We just finished up the women's segment, now on to the men's March Madness segment. Little interesting tournament. We saw NC State go on a run through the whole thing, make it the whole way to the Final Four, and then end up losing in the Final Four. Joey, we'll start with you. Thoughts on this year's tournament?
I think, like you said, NC State, they did great. I watched them throughout the entire ACC tournament and going 5-0 on the road, winning that tournament, and then being able to go all the way to the Final Four was definitely impressive to me. I didn't expect them to win. I did have them in one of my brackets to win, but I wasn't expecting that. But they were able to get pretty far, and I think that overall, if you're NC State, if you're Kevin Keatts, you know that was a great season. You cannot deny that whatsoever. But overall, I think the tournament was good. I didn't have any terrible things to say about it. Definitely loved watching the round of 64 and the round of 32, of course. But I know that some people, their brackets were not as lucky, but we'll get into that later.
I know Tyler's did pretty well. So
Yeah,
we'll go to you, Tyler.
There's another
March
Tyler in
Madness
here.
bracket this year. You were pretty successful in it. How'd you do?
Yeah, I was so successful that I picked Auburn to win the whole thing. I've learned my lesson. Never pick against Ivy League schools. Princeton last year,
This guy's gonna
Yale
bet on
this
them
year.
all the time now.
And I don't bet, but if I was a betting man, I would bet the Ivy League to win next year. At least a game in the round of 64.
Well,
See, a team that kind of surprised me was Alabama. I mean, they were good all year. Coming to the tournament, they were doing pretty well, and then I was not expecting them to beat North Carolina. That's one. I mean, it was a close game, really
think
close
that
game,
was-
2-point game.
yeah.
But yeah, I did not expect them to beat North Carolina.
I think that was the best
expected
game.
North Carolina in the Final Four.
I think that was the best game we probably seen out of the entire matchup. I think maybe that one or the what was it, Oregon-Creighton game? That
Yeah,
was probably
double
the double
overtime, yeah.
overtime. Yeah, that was also a great game. I kind of wish Creighton would go a little further. Myself, I didn't like Purdue being in the championship.
I'm the exact same way.
I didn't think that they would even be there. I was kind of counting Purdue out.
I'm one
Granted,
of
they
the
got knocked out
biggest-
last time, but
I'm one of the biggest Zach Edey haters. He's going to be just like Taco Fall. Go into the league, be a bust, and Taco Fall, I think,
Right.
is in Spain. Is he
I
in
have
Spain
no
now? I
clue.
know he's overseas. He's
I know
playing
last time
international.
he was on the
but
Celtics,
going to be
but-
one of those tall guys, 7'6" guy, and just going to be a bust.
yeah.
I mean, look, is he a college basketball great, like the career he had at Purdue? Yes. But Purdue as a organization, they are not great. I think they have the most March Madness wins over anybody. I think it's like a 20-year stretch or something like that without winning a national championship. So that tells you all you need to know. They can win games, but they typically don't win
Not the big
the
dance.
big one. I mean, Edey did his thing, though, 37 and 10. He was probably one of the better players in this year's March Madness tournament. But, I like to pick a lot of upsets. I'm a big guy. I like to, I love the upsets. We'll just say
Unless
that.
it's Auburn.
This year was kind of chalk. I mean, you had the two probably favorites to play in the national championship game make it. Houston, I thought, we probably expected a little bit more out of him, especially with Duke winning.
Yeah,
I'm not a big
bit.
Duke guy. I liked Creighton to go a little bit
Creighton
farther.
the entire
But
way.
how about a Clemson run that I think
Right?
nobody
I
saw?
did not
expect
that.
Everybody
I did
was
not expect
having
the Clemson
the
run.
11 New Mexico
And
over
Duquesne.
Clemson in the first round.
Duquesne
and,
did well.
And Clemson just went on a run. I mean, yeah, you had Duquesne. Shout out to Dukes.
See, I had Arizona winning the whole thing. So when Clemson beat Arizona,
Arizona.
no,
Hate on.
they did not play well this year.
I don't even have like a team that got, my team's Notre Dame. They
Yeah,
didn't even make
no.
it. into this,
That is probably the biggest disappointment, though. Everybody wanted to see the North Carolina Arizona matchup. I mean, if you know the drama. I mean, Caleb
Right.
Love moving away from North Carolina, going back, potentially facing his former team
Yeah.
in the Elite Eight, and both of them fall flat on their face in Los Angeles. I mean, that was probably the most
bad.
disappointing night of the entire tournament.
Yeah.
Because both of those guys are going to go off, and we just never got to see it.
I think the biggest surprise was probably the Kentucky game, and especially after Kentucky
Yeah.
losing to Oakland, and now we have a Kentucky coaching spot open. I think that March Madness was a great time for certain coaches, and particularly Dana Altman, to come in, have a great tournament, and maybe make a case for that position. So I think my pick for the next Kentucky coach is going to be Dana Altman.
Yeah, if we're going there, he's had a fantastic career at Oregon. He's undefeated in the first, I think, 2 rounds of March Madness as the head coach of Oregon. But if we're gonna have one person to fill the job, I think it's gonna be Nate Oates. I think they stay in the SEC.
He's
He goes
also
from
great.
Alabama to Kentucky. Granted, Alabama, when you're there and you're successful, you have the donors' backs. The athletic department.
Yeah, look
they
at the
have
football.
his
Look
back.
at the football team.
That's
with
what I'm
Nick
saying.
Saban
You have
when
you
Nick
have
Saban was at
diehard
Alabama.
fans. But the problem with Alabama basketball is they've been great under Nate Oates. They're just not a blue blood. I mean, anybody would love to go to Kentucky and have that job.
Yeah.
And I think Nate Oates would be lying to everybody and himself if he didn't go out there and at least say he was interested, or at least interested in going. I mean, Kentucky, you heard Calipari say in his farewell message, like, it was a dream job for him. But sometimes, things just have to come to an end. He's had one of the most successful resumes at Kentucky, the national championship, the most produced one and dones. I mean, he kind of changed the dynamic of college basketball
He did.
in the way players look at the college game. You go in, you're a 5-star recruit, you play well, you're guaranteed a pick in the draft if you go to Kentucky. I mean, that's just what he was able to build at Kentucky. But any one of these coaches that I think is a possible candidate for that job would be lying if they were sitting up there saying that they weren't thinking about it. And I think that includes Dan Hurley of UConn. Because
Yeah,
I know
I
what he
completely
said.
agree with you on that.
He said he wasn't interested, but I think you're lying to yourself. I mean, what more is there for him to accomplish
The
at
sun
UConn?
is setting. The
Yeah.
sun is setting on
and
the
you got
UConn dynasty. here.
UConn, you could say, is a blue blood in college basketball.
Yeah,
You could
okay.
argue. But Kentucky is an even bigger blue blood. And again, I just think you are not being honest if you say you're not interested in the job.
Yeah, Dan Hurley, I mean, you had a great run at UConn. You just had 2 championships. If you're Dan Hurley, you're definitely sitting there and you're going, is a three-peat even possible?
Yeah.
Now, granted, surely it is, but I don't know if it's probable. I think the biggest thing is that you're going into this. Personally, if I was him, I know I just won 2 with UConn. I might as well just go to another team and see what I can do with it, especially a blue blood like Kentucky. Why not?
Yeah, I mean, I could see him staying at UConn, though, and not going to Kentucky. I mean, 3-peat would be pretty cool. I mean, you can't argue against that. But
Yeah.
that does it for our men's segment. It is Masters Week this week, so that's what we'll talk about next here on Plead Your Case.
Pop culture is everywhere, and if you want to stay on top of it all, look no further than WCTV's very own Nerd Alert, your one-stop shop for everything pop culture. Join us as we talk about the hot new movies, TV shows, video games, celebrities, and everything in between. With a wide variety of topics, an enthusiastic cast, and unlimited talent, there's no place on WCTV quite like Nerd Alert.
Welcome back to Plead Your Case. Talking about the Masters now. It's Masters Week. It started tomorrow. I know we're all excited for it.
I'm thrilled.
We'll start with you, Tyler. We'll start with Tiger Woods. He not been very relevant throughout the past few months. Has taken off for injury. Started to play a little bit, but then cut back down on the rounds he's been playing. Hasn't played any big tournaments throughout March to get prepared for the Masters, but he's playing tomorrow. What are your thoughts?
I'm indifferent about Tiger right now. Coming up here, I was expecting to argue the fact that I think he's probably going to withdraw before he misses the cut, but if he doesn't, he'll probably miss the cut. But I'm starting to get on board with this whole Woods train again. I mean, he is one of the one of the exclusive guys on a list where if you say you've had one of the worst years, you haven't been playing great. If there's a guy that can come in and win the Masters just out of nowhere, I mean, it's him. And he did it in 2019.
Wait,
so
but hasn't been playing great. He hasn't played at all.
Doesn't matter. It's Tiger Woods.
Here's the thing:
That's it.
is he is a generational talent. Big time players show up for big time events. I mean, he is a big time player. He did it in 2019. Came out of nowhere.
It's Tiger Woods.
When you see Woods on the list,
you see Woods on a scorecard and
Yeah.
you
No,
say,
no,
"Oh yeah,
if
let's
I
go
see
in."
him on a scorecard and he's playing against me, he's obviously going to win,
He's
but-
going to win no matter what. He's going against Jason Day and Max Homa and Group 27.
he
at
might have the
130.
best score out of that
This
pair.
guy is going to have a day.
That's if he lasts. That's
It's in
if
Augusta.
he lasts the tournament.
He's going to last. Here's the thing. With Tiger Woods, he's going into this and he's saying, I need to finish 4 rounds of golf. If I want to have my career still viable within golf right now, sticking with the PGA and sticking with them, he knows he has to complete 4 rounds.
don't
And it's
get me
Augusta.
wrong.
This is his course. He owns this place.
He does.
Literally,
I mean,
if you go
5
to the
wins,
deed,
yeah.
Tiger Woods is named as the owner because he
Yeah.
owns this place.
Yeah.
He can go in there and he can play great. He has been fabulous. Plus, there's this thing, I don't know if you know about it. It's called Amen Corner. Everyone knows about it if you know the Masters.
Yep.
11, 12, and 13. White Dogwood, Golden Bell,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Azalea. That is probably the most pivotal place in any sporting aspect ever. And Tiger Woods, I think, is the champion out of all of those. So Tiger Woods coming into this, he said he has one more win in him. He says he has another major win in him. I believe he does. Maybe it's not this one, but there's another major in him, and I think he's going to complete 4 rounds of golf.
See, don't get me wrong. Like, the greatest golfer of all time. Like, you can't argue against it. 5 wins in the Masters. Going for 6. Don't think he's going to do it. But, I mean, we've seen it before. He goes in, says he's going to win all of these majors, and then goes into it and cuts back. Like, he
here's my
he
thing.
leaves halfway through. I think he gets through 2.5 rounds and then leaves.
Nope.
Here's my thing. I can see how people would think that the lack of golf leading up to this has hurt him. But again, he is he doesn't need to play in a bunch of tournaments to be on the right track going in. You look at guys right now, they need those events before the Masters to get their swings in check. They need those events to, find some form, whether it's a good form and getting out of bad form or whatnot. They need those events. Woods does not. He can go in there and practice on a golf range and still go out there and probably be better than 3/4 of the field on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I think that, again, big time
but how
players
much-
show up for big time events.
How much has he
and
been practicing?
he is a
though?
big time player.
How much has he been practicing?
He's
Woods. He can
dedicated
practice
his
whenever he
entire.
wants.
No.
I mean,
How
everybody's
much-
seen the
Golf course in his
reports,
backyard.
though.
He didn't play in March because sources
Just because he
said
didn't
he
play
was injured.
competitively, it does not mean he has not played golf. He's still played
That's-
golf. He's still trained. He's a trainer. He knows what he's doing, and he's going to get there.
Yeah, and he's talked about this as his, Super Bowl. Like the last 3 months of work has been being built up
Yeah.
for this moment. And, it's a mental game. He's felt the most pressure out of any golfer. He's played in probably any scenario you could ask for. He is not worried about pressure. He's probably not worried about building this event up because, again, he
It's
is
Tiger Woods. It's the
yes,
Masters. He doesn't.
I mean,
he knows.
he's incredible.
is.
He's going to go out there and he's going to perform. And I think that, yes, there's always that chance that he doesn't have a great first round. He probably goes through the second round and he ends up withdrawing. I don't think that's going to be the case, though, this year. I think we're going to see a different Tiger Woods.
Well,
because you know what they say, special teams, special plays, special plays.
Special
all right?
field,
With that-
special
He's right
course.
there.
With
He's
that
right
note,
there.
we'll move on to Scheffler. Been
Yeah.
one of the hottest golfers so far. He's on a roll right now. He's swinging really well. He's hitting the ball really well, better than anyone else, I feel, in the Masters right now. He's the favorite to win it, creating a new era in golf, kind of like Tiger Woods in his prime, Rory McIlroy in 2014. Thoughts on Scheffler?
Well, I don't know if either of you saw. Today was media day at Augusta.
Yeah, we watched it a little bit.
So Scotty, in an interview, was saying that he is willing to leave the Masters
Yes.
tournament because his wife is currently set to go into labor on Sunday. Of course, that's Masters Sunday. So the thing is that if you're Scotty Scheffler and you've said this out loud to everyone, and you've said, I'm willing to leave, I'm going, because it is his first child, and you've said, yep, I'm gone. If my wife goes into labor, I'm out of there. I'm not playing anymore. That's one, crazy to me. Two, that's Good on him.
No, yeah, I
Congrats
respect.
to him.
I respect
I
that.
respect it.
I respect
But
that.
my thing is that if you go into this and you are leading on Sunday, you're going into Sunday, you're leading. I think it would be the best story possible. He's on hole 16. He's on Redbud. He knows where he has to go, and then he gets the call. I'm going to the Labor. It would be the best thing ever if he won and then had to leave right away. He won the Masters, and instead of getting that green jacket, he goes to meet his kid. That'd be, and if that happened, I would honestly I would put in a mail request to have some way that the kid is named after Augusta somehow. Just call him August. Call him August.
Here's the
okay?
thing. Because I watched that portion of the interview before we ended up having class. He makes perfect sense because you're not ever going to witness, your firstborn, again.
But he's going to be
but
to the Masters.
He's going to
again,
play
is
the
what he said.
Masters.
He's
a
already
lot
won the
longer.
Masters, so I
but
think
here's
he
the
knows.
thing. Here's the thing. To your point about he gets the call on the 16th hole. I don't know if there is an outside force that could make the world's best play even greater golf. I don't think that hurts him in any way. I think he may go out there and put on a last crazy 3-hole run
That'd be
to
insane.
not even win the Masters, but to go out there and put it out of reach so nobody can touch him.
Yeah.
So when he gets off the 18th green, he walks to his car and he's on his way to see his wife.
Yeah.
And that's what I think.
That'd be great.
That's
That'd be
the
awesome.
only force that I think could make a player that's already the best player in the field play even better golf. Because again, you said he's the favorite. He's my favorite to win it again this year. Like I don't think there's anybody right now. If he plays his golf, which everybody has seen him play, nobody's going to touch him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I read something today. It was he's the lowest shots to get to the green on the past 3 tournaments.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so in the past 3 tournaments, he has been outstanding. In the Players Tournament, he was able to win that back-to-back, and he also won the week before that, which was fabulous. But the biggest thing behind that is who was behind him the entire time. It wasn't Tiger. It wasn't Scotty, because he is Scotty.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't Morikawa or anybody like that. It was Wyndham Clark. Wyndham Clark was behind him in each of those, and he was only behind by 2 or 3 shots. I think this is the time that Wyndham Clark is going to come out striking. And although Tiger Woods is on the course, although Rory McIlroy is here for his 16th time, and although Ricky Fowler's out there wearing some bright colors, I think this is the time for Wyndham Clark. He's teeing off at 10:54 tomorrow. I will be tuning in, hands down. I think this is Wyndham Clark's time to shine, win his first major, and get that green jacket.
He was the group after Scotty at the Players,
Yes.
and he was
Same here.
literally a lipped putt going in instead of out from forcing a playoff with the best player
And he's
in
right
on
behind
the
Scotty.
PGA Tour.
Scotty's in Group 14, and Wyndham's in Group 15.
Exactly. So that's your underdog pick.
No, he's my pick.
He's
my
your
pick.
He's his pick.
My
pick.
my
Yeah, he's his
underdog
pick.
pick for this is going to be Rory going into this. Of course, being his 16th time trying to complete that career Grand Slam. I really want to see it
Here's
for
my
him.
thing.
Wait, you
but I
said
don't
your
know.
sleeper's Rory?
Yeah.
Here's
That's
my thing.
That's my pick.
I think he's
That's
going
my
into
pick.
this a lot more muted than he normally is. He's normally not having this so much quietness going into it, especially because this is live and everything. They're not going to him as much. I think Rory is the sleeper
but he's
because
still-
he's going to
been
sneak
quiet,
up on him.
so he's gonna
Yeah,
come
but
out
he
of
I
it.
think
still
he's gonna
talked
sneak
about
up
it
on it.
after previous rounds, like when he goes and
Oh, yeah.
talks to NBC and does his post game stuff. He still talks about it. My thing is would I love to see him complete it, the Grand Slam? Yes, 100%. But I think the fact that it's his 16th time tells you all you need to know. He's a player on the back half of his career, and look, could he do something like what Woods did in 2019? Sure. But I don't think he's that type of player to go out and do it. If he's going to do it, it's got to be this year. And that's why I think that it's such a mental game. I think he's built up the Masters to be, this massive Super Bowl event for him. And that's why he's fallen short. I think everybody builds up into the hype going in the Masters because, it's Rory. He could do it. He's going for it. And then he doesn't. I just don't see it happening. I think if he was going to do it, it would have already happened. 16 attempts as a professional golfer to get around, yes, one of the hardest courses. But if you're going for a Grand Slam, you obviously have the skill.
Yeah,
I think he should have done it by
This
now.
has been his hardest course ever.
Yeah.
Augusta, he missed the cut last year.
Yeah.
It's something that definitely you want to see him continue to go on, but I don't think it'll happen.
All right, so that brings me up. Who are you excited to watch tomorrow? What group? My group is Group 9. We talked about it a little bit before. Phil Mickelson. We talked about it a little bit, Joey. You said that if he shoots par, he'll have a great week. If he
Yeah.
shoots anything above par starting tomorrow, he'll have a rough time.
I think if he shoots par or under, he'll have a great week. Because normally with Mickelson, especially now being in the Live Tour, which don't even get me started on that.
Not a big fan?
No, it's kind of stupid. The one note I have here is that Jon Rahm, the previous winner, he won last year. He left for Live Golf for $300 million, which good on him, whatever. But he stated in his tour stuff that he's been doing that he left Live in hopes to reconnect the two. Sadly, that didn't happen, and frankly, I don't want that to happen. The PGA is superior.
Yeah, the PGA is.
So
you can't put the Live there. I mean, it's not. It's golf, but it's not like.
Yeah, it's
It's
not
not the
OG
classy.
golf.
It's not
It's
the.
not OG
It's
golf.
not
No,
OG
it's
golf.
not
It's not
OG
the
golf.
classy field of golf.
Yeah, it feels like the UFL, the XFL,
Yeah.
whatever those other ones that they've tried to
Exactly.
make. It doesn't work. But going back to Mickelson, I think if he does even or better, he will have a great week. He's been to Augusta before. He has known, and last year he did fabulous going into Saturday and Sunday. But if he does anything below that, I think he's going to struggle in the remainder of this tournament. But for those other groups that I like to see, I kind of listed out the groups that I'm willing to watch. Group 5, Group 9, like we said, Group 11 with Ricky Fowler and Patrick Cantlay. I'm excited for that.
I don't think Ricky Fowler's going to do anything.
I think he'll
crazy
do
this
something.
year.
He normally does, but we'll see where it goes. Group 12 with Matsuyama, Zalatoris, and Thomas. Group 13 with Rahm, Fitzpatrick, and Dunlap. Group 14 with Scotty and Rory. Group 15 with Clark, my winner, and Hovland and Smith. Group 27 with Woods, Day, and Hama. 28 with Harmon, Koepka, and Kim. And 29 with Spieth, Aberg, and Thigala. And then 30 with Morikawa, Johnson, and Fleetwood. That Group 30 being the last one to go.
Yeah, I'll say this: we got blessed with some great pairings
Oh, yeah.
in the
no,
first
that's what we
two
were
on
talking
the
about
first
earlier.
2 days.
Like,
Yes.
I mean,
these
you
pairings are great.
you look at this. There is a few pairings where you could say that I think a winner could come out of this group. Like you look at 15. I know you took Clark as your champ outright. I think he's a big sleeper. I mean, he's playing with Hovland. He's fell off 4 different swing coaches since he's won the tour last year. He's not had the best golf. But Cam Smith is a guy that's been on that right trajectory. When you talk about where you want to be going into Masters Week, he's one of those guys that started to figure some things out. He's in that group with them. I think he could be someone that, if he gets it going, he could easily finish in the top 10.
See, I don't
He's just
blame you
there.
for thinking that, but the thing is, he's on the evil side. He's on Live.
No, I know,
So
but
I don't
You
want
don't
him
wanna
to
touch
win.
him.
I don't want it to happen, but I mean, I get it. And going back to that with Koepka as well, Koepka has been a phenomenal player.
Well, he was there 2
especially.
years ago.
Exactly.
And he just fell off on Sunday. He was nowhere
it
to
was
be found.
weird. But a funny quote that I saw today was that a reporter asked Koepka, he said, "Is it possible to shoot a 59 here at Augusta?" And Koepka in response goes, "Have you played here?" And the reporter goes, "No." And he goes, "I can tell by the question."
Yeah, I mean,
It was just hilarious because it's like, but then also the thing is that if you're a reporter and you're reporting on Augusta, you know that Augusta is probably the hardest tournament to play.
I mean, here's the thing: shooting 59 at Augusta is like me hoping to shoot less than 100.
Well, that's my question. Quickly, right here before we end things, what do you think you would shoot on Augusta?
Oh, I don't even know if I'd want to hit on Augusta.
I don't
I
think
would just
I'm-
want to get in a cart and I'd
Or
say,
how many balls? I think I might
no.
shoot-
I'd give Tiger Woods my clubs and say, "Hey, can you just make my clubs go through this and make them feel the special stuff, and I'll drive you
I might
around."
lose more balls than greens I hit.
I would go around and smell
gonna be
the
straight up.
flowers and take pictures with the yellow flag.
I'm gonna be straight up. I'm not worthy to play that course. Okay?
Yeah,
I'm
we're not worthy.
I mean,
Not worthy at all.
if Woods was there and he's like, "Hey, you want a caddy for me?" I'd be like, "Look, I'm not worthy,
can't
but
even
sure,
step
I'll carry
foot.
your
I
clubs."
can't
I'll
even
carry your
step
I mean,
clothes any
holy
day.
cow!
Yeah, right.
That's all I
exactly.
would need. If I could get the chance to go to the Masters, that's all I need. That's good enough for me.
Yeah, exactly. I'm excited for this weekend. I can't wait. This is a big time for my family and myself, so I can't wait.
That does it for this episode of Plead Your Case. Some great talk about men's and women's March Madness, as well as the Masters, which gets started this weekend. But from Keegan Raabe, Joey Chirillo, and Tyler Zeman, that's all for Plead Your Case.
This has been a production of Waynesburg Community Television.